You can work hard, get paid on time, take care of your bills, avoid reckless spending, and still feel like your paycheck never becomes anything permanent. That is the part that makes money feel so confusing, because from the outside, it looks like income should solve the problem. More hours, more overtime, a raise, a better job, a bigger paycheck, and for a moment, it does feel like something changed. The deposit hits your account. The number looks bigger. You breathe a little easier. And then life starts taking its share. Rent takes its part. Debt takes its part. Groceries take their part. The car takes its part. The phone bill takes its part. Subscriptions take their small, quiet pieces. Family needs something. Something breaks. You get tired. You order food. You tell yourself you deserve one small break. And before the paycheck has a chance to become savings or investments or breathing room, it is already gone. Not because you did nothing, but because the money never stayed long enough to become wealth. That is the part most people miss. A paycheck is not wealth. A paycheck is just money passing through your life. It becomes wealth only when some of it survives, when some of it becomes savings, when some of it becomes investments, when some of it pays down debt, when some of it turns into ownership, when some of it creates space between you and the next emergency. But if every dollar enters your account already assigned to someone else, then you are not building wealth. You are managing traffic. Money comes in, money goes out, and you are standing in the middle trying to feel ahead. This is why income alone can be misleading, because income only tells you how much money enters your life. It does not tell you how much stays. Someone can make $3,000 a month and keep nothing. Someone can make $5,000 a month and keep $100. Someone can make $4,000 a month and keep $800. And from the outside, the person making $5,000 might look like they are doing better. But the math says something different. If you make $3,000 and keep 0, your wealth building rate is 0%. If you make $5,000 and keep 100, your wealth building rate is 2%. If you make $4,000 and keep 800, your wealth building rate is 20%. That one number changes everything. Because the real question is not just how much do you make? The real question is how much of your work becomes your future. That is the paycheck math most people never calculate. They know their hourly wage. They know their salary. They know what they make before taxes. They know what payday feels like. But they do not know their retention rate. They do not know how much of their income survives the month. And that is dangerous. Because what survives is what builds. The money that disappears pays for life. The money that survives changes your life. And this is where hard work gets quietly neutralized. Because a raise should create breathing room. A raise should create distance. A raise should make the month feel less tight. But for many people, the raise gets absorbed almost immediately. A slightly better apartment, a newer car, more takeout, a better phone plan, better clothes, more weekends out, a few more subscriptions, a little more convenience, a little more comfort, a little more I deserve this. And none of it feels wrong in the moment because you did work harder, you did earn more, you are tired, you have been waiting to feel some reward from all this effort, so the upgrade feels reasonable. But then something strange happens. The income rises and the pressure rises with it. The paycheck gets bigger, but the gap does not. The lifestyle expands, but the freedom does not. That is lifestyle inflation. It turns progress into a more expensive version of being stuck. And the reason it is so hard to notice is because it does not feel like failure. It feels like improvement. The apartment is better. The car is better. The food is better, the clothes are better, the life looks slightly more comfortable. But underneath all of that, the same problem is still there. The money is still passing through. The future is still waiting for leftovers, and leftovers are not a wealth building system. This is why some people keep working harder but never feel safer. Their income improves, but their fixed costs improve with it. And fixed costs are different from normal spending. A normal purchase leaves after you make it. A fixed cost waits for you every month. Rent, car payments, insurance, phone plans, debt minimums, subscriptions, loans, buy now pay later payments. These are not just expenses. They are future claims on income you have not earned yet. Before the month even starts, parts of your next paycheck already belong to something else. That is why a person can feel trapped even with a decent income, because the paycheck has already been divided before it arrives. You're not deciding what to do with all your money. You're deciding what to do with what survived the commitments. And the more of your paycheck that is pre-committed, the less control you actually have. This is the quiet trap. It is not always the small coffee. It is not always one random purchase. Sometimes the real trap is building a life that requires every future paycheck to arrive perfectly. No missed work, no emergency, no delay, no surprise, no mistake, no breathing room. That kind of life looks normal from the outside, but financially, it is fragile. Because the second something unexpected happens, the whole system shakes. A car repair, a medical bill, a family emergency, a job gap, a broken appliance, a rent increase. One surprise can erase months of effort, not because you are careless, but because there was no buffer between your life and the emergency. That is what people mean when they say they feel like they keep starting over. They are not imagining it. Without savings, every surprise becomes a reset. You build a little progress, then life takes it back. You start saving. Then something breaks. You pay down debt. Then another bill appears. You finally feel stable. Then one emergency pulls you back to zero. And after enough resets, it starts to feel like working hard does not work. But the issue is not that work has no value. The issue is that your money never gets enough protection. It keeps being exposed to every bill, every emergency, every pressure, every emotional moment, before it becomes strong enough to defend you. And debt makes this even heavier. Because in the first video, the idea was that money has future value. $1 today can become more tomorrow if it gets invested. That is compounding working for you. But debt is the same force facing the other direction. Credit card interest, car loan interest, personal loan interest, minimum payments, buy now pay later habits. Every month you carry certain kinds of debt. Your future income is being pulled backward. You are not just paying for something you bought. You are paying for the time you took to pay for it. And that is where the math becomes uncomfortable. Because investing pays your future self. Debt interest pays someone else with your future income. That is why minimum payments can feel so defeating. You send money out, but the balance barely moves. You feel responsible because you are paying something, but the debt is still sitting there, quietly collecting rent from your future. This is the opposite of ownership. Ownership is when money starts working for you. Debt interest is when your money works for someone else before it works for you. And if enough of your paycheck is already going to rent, debt, transportation, food, subscriptions, and interest, then the problem is not that you picked the wrong stock. The problem is that you never got investable money in the first place. That is where the wealth gap starts for most people. Not on Wall Street, not in some complicated investment strategy, not because they failed to discover the perfect opportunity. It starts in cash flow. It starts before investing. It starts in the moment the paycheck enters your life. And almost none of it survives long enough to be multiplied. Because you cannot multiply money that never survives the month. You cannot invest money that is already absorbed. You cannot build assets with money that disappears automatically. And that is why the paycheck math matters. Because every paycheck has two possible futures. It can become consumption, or it can become ownership. Consumption is not evil. You need a place to live. You need food. You need transportation. You need rest. You need small moments that make life feel human. The point is not to hate spending. The point is to notice when every dollar ends there. Because if all your income becomes consumption, then every month starts over from nothing. You worked, you earned, you spent, you survived. Then the next month comes, and you have to do it again. Ownership breaks that loop. Savings is ownership of breathing room. An emergency fund is ownership of stability. Investments are ownership of future growth. Debt reduction is ownership of your next paycheck. Skills are ownership of earning power. Business equity is ownership of upside. Retirement accounts are ownership of time you have not lived yet. These are forms of money that stop disappearing and start staying. That is when income begins turning into wealth. Not when you look richer, not when your paycheck gets bigger, not when your lifestyle becomes more impressive, but when some part of your income stops ending as consumption. This is the real number to track. Not just what you make, not just what hits your account, not just what your job pays you. Track what becomes savings. Track what becomes investments. Track what becomes debt reduction. Track what becomes assets. Track what becomes breathing room. That number tells the truth. Because if you make more money, but none of it survives, then your life may look upgraded, but your financial position has not changed. You are still dependent on the next paycheck arriving. You are still one emergency away from restarting. You are still working for money that disappears before it becomes power. And that is why earning more can feel so disappointing. People expect more income to automatically create more freedom. But money does not become freedom automatically. It has to be protected. It has to be directed. It has to be kept alive long enough to do something besides live. That is the shift. The goal is not to earn more just so more money can pass through your life. The goal is to keep enough of it alive to change your life. Because working hard gives you income, but systems decide whether that income becomes wealth. A paycheck can feed your life. It can keep the lights on. It can cover the bills. It can get you through the month. But if nothing survives, then the paycheck becomes a loop. You work, you get paid, life takes its share. You recover, then you work again. And years can pass that way. Not because you did not try, not because you were lazy, not because you wanted to stay stuck, but because the money never had a chance to become anything stronger than temporary relief. So the question is not only, how do I make more? The question is, how do I stop my money from disappearing before it becomes wealth? Because once, even a small part of your paycheck starts surviving, the math changes. A little savings creates space. A little space prevents panic. Less panic reduces bad decisions. Fewer bad decisions protect more money. More protected money becomes options. And options are where freedom begins. Not all at once, not dramatically, not in a way people online can always see, but quietly, paycheck by paycheck, month by month, dollar by dollar, until your money is no longer just passing through your life. It is helping you build one you do not have to constantly recover from. And that is the difference. Working hard gives you income, but keeping money alive turns income into power. If this made you look at your paycheck differently, subscribe to Fiscal Sense, because the goal is not to look rich. The goal is to stop your money from disappearing before it becomes your future.